The first plant on the list of easy plants is your classical Anubias. Nah, I'm just kidding. We will come back to this one later, but I think we can do better than that. Let's start with a useful and pretty plant. Hygrophila Rosanervig, a variegated variety of the all-time classic, and just as easy. The difference is that this one will develop a white to pink pattern, especially on the newer leaves. Although colors like this are influenced by the lighting of the tank, and strong color usually needs strong light, those leaves right here were grown under this $15 LED from Amazon, with just 7 hours of light per day. Summed up, a beautiful, easy to grow eye catcher, even for your first planted tank. Number 2. Shinersia rivularis white-green. Another plant with a white pattern. It is easy to keep overall, the only thing that's difficult is getting a hand on it, because I got the feeling that it's not really common in the hobby. Ordering it online is not a problem though, but this plant absolutely hates being shipped for some reason. I even got warned before ordering it, and after just 3 days in the bag, the plant looked like this. But it recovered fast, and the reward is a beautiful, fast-growing plant with nice coloration. Just below the water surface, with enough light, it develops these beautiful bigger leaves that can even get a red touch. So if you got the space in your tank and you need a nice looking background plant, here you go. Now if you really enjoy gardening or you are really afraid of algae, this one is your friend. Limnophila sessiliflora, one of my favorite plants. Not only a different texture in your tank, but the fastest growing plant I have had this far. I had a pretty strong algae outbreak in this tank, and this plant even outgrew the algae. Now while this is definitely a good thing, especially when you are just starting, it also means that you will have to keep an eye on it. Because Limnophila sessiliflora fights a battle against every plant nearby. It regularly shoots these stems around trying to get more space, and it also spreads above the ground. But I think it's better to have fast growing plants than having fast growing algae, right? While we are talking about algae, let's go back to this Anubias from the beginning. It's one of the plants you will find on almost all easy plants lists, together with bucephalandras and Java fern. Honestly, those are great plants and definitely easy, but I still didn't include them in this list. This is because I think that they are more of a nice to have than a must have. They grow really slow and don't do much for your water quality or against algae. This Anubias nana right here has been in an algae infested tank, but I took it out over 6 months ago and placed it in an algae free tank. It still hasn't got rid of the BBA, which just shows that they are not that resistant against algae. And especially in your first tank, you will get algae at the start. So if you have some space in a tank, definitely put some Anubias and bucephalandras in, because they are awesome. But take care of the useful plants first. With that out of the way, let's continue with a splash of color. Ludwigia palustris super red. It's maybe the easiest red plant out there, and it is also one of the red plants that will always have more or less red coloration, no matter how much light it gets. If you have strong lighting, this one can get a really intense color, but it will also be a nice contrast in a low light setup. A must have in my opinion. If you have already done a bit of research, you might not expect the next one. All of the classical Rotalas, especially Rotala atra. I have grown this one in multiple setups now. Low light and strong light, CO2 and no CO2, filter and no filter. It has done well every single time, and it always had an interesting color as well. These yellow pinkish stems were grown in an absolute low-tech setup with a weak Amazon LED, no CO2 and no fertilization. Of course, it looks better in a high-tech environment, but I wouldn't miss out on this one in any setup. A really popular and useful plant is Hemianthus glomeratus. You might know it under its common name Pearlweed. It is a really easy and fast growing plant. But it also looks really interesting and gives you a ton of options. You can plant it in the middle ground as a dense bush of green. But in smaller tanks, you could also use it in the background. And if you keep it low, it might even serve as a low-tech carpet. Overall, a true all-rounder with a lot of potential. Just keep up with the maintenance, because like Limnophila sessiliflora, this one will grow like crazy when the conditions are right. One last thing I want to tell you. I am convinced, and it matches my experience, that all aquatic plants grow better with CO2, in combination with good fertilization and more light. If you keep those 3 things balanced, your plants will grow faster, prettier and more healthy. But all the plants on this list are plants that I had good results with in setups that had no high-tech light, no CO2 and no dedicated fertilization. I hope this list will help you with your project. I'll see you in the next one.